So welcome again, and thank you everybody for joining us this morning. My name is Marianne Clerkin. I'm the marketing manager at Threshold Security. Just want to start with a little bit of housekeeping. We will be keeping all the attendees on mute. Your mics will be muted, but if you need to have a question or a problem, a technical problem, please use the question tab and we will try and respond to you as quickly as possible. We will do a Q&A sort of session at the end and do our very best to answer all your questions at that point. So you can just type your questions in and we'll get to them as soon as we can. So, for any of you who don't know who Threshold are, we are the manufacturer of visitor management systems, most well known for the expiring visitor badges. And we're committed to supporting the IHSS and healthcare security professionals like yourselves, and are proud to sponsor today's educational events. Today's conversation is the second of 3 we have scheduled. Dates and topics for the third one will be sent to you via email. I am very honored today to have Bill Marcisz get with us again to talk about the art of selling to your security needs to your C-suite. This was a very hot topic, so we're really glad to have you here, Bill. For those of you who may not know Bill, he's been in the healthcare industry for about 40 years. And he is well versed in the day-to-day challenges of security directors, including strategic planning to help improve hospital security programs. In addition to being a healthcare security professional, Bill is also an attorney and currently has his own security consulting business, Strategic Security Management Consulting. You can see that behind him. So thanks for being here today, Bill. We're really glad to have you. And I think we can get started.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate you sponsoring this little chat. I don't know if what we call this, a podcast or a webinar. We'll call it a webcast. How about that?
Webcast. There we go. All right. So just before we got started today, Bill and I were talking about the Lindbergh Bell Award. So Bill, maybe you want to start by just telling people a little bit about that award and the hospitals that you were working with who were able to attain that award.
Yeah, so Lindbergh, the International Association for Healthcare Security and Safety, one of its founding members, his name was Lindbergh Bell, and the organization has been giving that award out to the hospital that is distinguished itself during the previous year or so. And there's a lot of criteria, but what I think is really significant about the award is that there's about 6,000 hospitals in the United States, and there's even more when you count that, IHOS, I call it IHOS, so we'll call it, so the hospital that gets that award it's really impressive to do that. And in fact, I have the award here. I was fortunate enough to be a recipient of that when we did that for Advent Health. So I was really proud of my team for that achievement. But what was really cool is that a couple of the hospitals I've worked with have applied, and one of them has gotten that award. And so I was, even though they did all the work, I kind of felt a little proud of them for doing that, because we spent a long time, about a half a year on that assessment, and a lot of the things they implemented were from that project. So and then they were awarded that Lindbergh Bell Award. So something to strive for. If you don't get it, that's okay too. Even to be considered for it is really an honor. So it's just one of those things that's out there.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about how you helped them achieve that award?
Yeah, so I could tell you a little bit how we got it. It was through a lot of strategic planning. That's what it was all about. So, and we didn't have this goal to get the award. We were just trying to make our hospital a safer place. We weren't looking at accolades. So through this discussion here, and I've created some slides, we'll talk about some of those things that we did and some of our approach. And you know, whether you just want to improve your hospital security program, or you know, obviously what we're trying to do here is show you how to sell your plans to your C-suite to get them to say, yes, I need, you know, I need this for my security team in order to make this hospital safer. So, so we'll go into planning a little bit, but more onto the strategic side of making that plan become a reality for you. And you know, maybe you can showcase your program and maybe apply for that award someday. So I hope you do. And if you have any questions throughout here, certainly be able to type them into chat, and we'll get to those right at the end.
Great. So it sounds like you think strategy is a little bit more important than planning?
I think so. You know, there's a lot of good planners out there that, and unless you know how to sell your plan, and selling your plan is really strategic in how you do it. So it takes a lot of work to get that plan approved and funded. So, and that's really the goal here. And how you get there, maybe you take a few shortcuts, maybe you cheat a little bit, maybe you, I'm not saying that you should do these things, but you know, I'm going to show you how to do it, you know, because all's fair here, you know.
Did you have some slides on that you wanted to share with us?
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so can you see the screen?
Yep.
Oh, okay, let me put it back up. All right, how's that?
I can see your screen, the main slide, yes.
Perfect, okay. All right, so this is the presentation agenda. We're gonna look at differences between planning and strategy very briefly. We're gonna talk about developing a security plan, and then how to avoid some common mistakes. Then really get into the how do we get to the C-suite decision making, or maybe it's not your C-suite who's making the decision to fund your plan, but certainly how to go about selling it.
Excuse me, Bill, are you onto your second slide? Because I'm still seeing the first opening slide.
Yeah, okay, I just got to the third, but let me,
Slides don't seem to be moving. There we go. Okay, now we see strategy versus planning. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to make sure everybody could see your slides.
Perfect. Well, I'm glad you did that, because then everybody would be really angry at us for not, you know, putting on a good show here. Okay. Yeah. I'm better at strategy than technology, so let's kind of move forward here. So just some key differences between strategy and planning. So planning is advanced preparation, and strategy is choosing the best plan. You know, and certainly strategy can lead to planning. Think about planning as being kind of future oriented, whereas strategy is action oriented. And then planning is based on your assumptions, and then, you know, strategy is based on practical experience. And you know, planning can be done short term, long term, and we always talk about 1, 3, and 5 year plans. Strategy is really for the long term. So, okay, let's move to the next slide here. Another way of thinking about the differences between strategy and planning are, planning is the thinking before the action takes place, whereas strategy is using that trick to gain success. So strategy is really, like I say here, it's the skill of managing, marshaling, manipulating any given set of variables into your planning process. So, and really both are required to get to yes. So,
so that trickery could be a little shady, huh?
it can be, So let's think about planning your plan ahead of time here. So there's a lot of different ways to plan, and quite honestly, this is what I've done in the past. So, and if you look at these different types of plans, and usually what you want to have is a plan sitting on its shelf, waiting to be implemented. And while you're doing that, you also want to socialize that plan. But here's how I get to creating the plan. And whether it's a comprehensive 1-3-5-year plan, maybe it's in your annual campus report. But what I used to do way back when is I used to just create a binder and keep some key and start at the bottom. So all of these things are plans in its own way sometimes. Even an email communication describes what the problem you're trying to solve and what are the possible solutions for it. So sometimes you just want to kind of print those out, keep them, or if you do it electronically and you can do that, that's fine too. Other things that I've done in the past, you go to conferences and things like that. I grab brochures from various different vendors for products that I might want to implement for as part of the strategic plan or for the department. Create memos. You're going to do that anyway, so hold on to them and kind of file them away. Line item assessments. Sometimes there's a specific thing that you're looking to accomplish, and there's some costs involved, and then you look at and you hold on to that because that could be useful. If you're familiar with the SBAR process, this is great because you could take those SBARs and you can cut and paste the problem, what your resolution is, how to go about fixing it. A lot of that can be extrapolated from SBARs and transferred over into a strategic plan. Any white papers that might be applicable, and shared services plan. So all of these things accumulate over time, but having them available so when you sit down and write that plan is really critical. So I think that's really important to do. So one of the best ways to organize a strategic plan is really just take a look at what we do in security. And in any security program, there's really just 5 elements to a program. So think about your security force as being your operations component, and that is supported by your training and education, maybe your physical security and technology, also communications, your dispatch, and your records management is all in that category. And then investigations and threat management. So that's your security program. So when you're just trying to do your strategic plan and you're trying to figure out how do I write this out, break it down into these 5 elements and then plug in all those various different technologies or ideas or processes and things like that that you want to accomplish in kind of segmenting your plan like that.
So what would be some of the plan strategies to get your C-suite to?
Let's just back up a second here. Let's talk about some of the mistakes you want to avoid too, especially in your annual reports. Don't regurgitate from last year. I know a lot of it might be the same, but nothing will shut down your readers' attention than seeing something that they've already seen. And even if you have a lot of new ideas and things in that plan, you want to kind of shuffle the deck a little bit, make sure that they're going to read through it, because if it's a 10-page, 30-page report or something like that, you're going to lose them right away. Keep it short, simple. If I would always recommend having an executive summary right up front and bullet point what it is that you're trying to accomplish. I've called it a BLUF, B-L-U-F, bottom line up front, because the folks who are reading your plan, especially if they have a C in their title, they've got time for 1 page and that's it, and they're just going to want to read that. And as long as you can concisely indicate what your plan is, then go ahead and kind of outline it like that. think about trends, think about gaining buy-in from stakeholders. Not planning on how to communicate your strategy is really a bad idea. Measurable goals, KPIs, those are key performance indicators. Make sure you develop what they are and how they can measure what you're hoping to accomplish. I know what your plan is. We're security folks, and we appreciate that. But you got to learn that language of the corporate administrator, and they're going to want to see what the measurable return is when they're trying to make their decisions. So, okay, so like I said, always have that plan sitting on the shelf, and this was our plan here actually for Advent Health. I prepared it. It took me an entire year to pull all this together, and this it was about 100 pages. You can see this little section there, but I had everything footnoted, and I left nothing to chance. I had all kinds of supporting documentation and reports and things like that, all tabbed out there so that it would not be, somebody challenged me on tasers or something like that, it was really hard to get across. I wanted to make sure that my information supporting that initiative was completely accurate. So, all right.
That's an impressive looking plan, just in its size alone. So your executive summary that you talked about earlier is going to be key to just giving them an overall summary that's manageable and understandable and doesn't require them reading for the entire book, but all the facts are there to back it up.
Yeah, I think that, if you take away anything from this discussion, is that always have that plan waiting to go, because you never know when something's going to happen, either an internal event in your organization or external event, and then your administration is going to be asking you for an idea how to resolve whatever security issue it is. And if you're going to be spending a lot of time researching and doing things, that window of opportunity may only be open for about a week. So that where it's such a hot button issue, they're willing to say yes to it. So make sure that you're ready to strike. So be prepared.
Sounds like a military battle.
It is, to a certain degree. You were talking about trickery. I did this presentation, and this is one of the slides. I did it at IHOS last year at their annual conference, and I used movies and song lyrics and things like that to kind of illustrate the point. And if you've ever seen this movie, and it's not a bad movie, it's even if you don't like sci-fi, there's a scene in the beginning of the movie where that believe it or not, that's Christy Alley on the left there talking to.
Oh wow.
William Shatner. Yeah.
That's a young Christy Alley.
Yeah, she wants to be a Starfleet captain, Star Trek. If you've ever watched the series, it's William Shatner played Captain Kirk, and now he's an admiral in in the movie series. And he was famous for in the Starfleet Academy, the fictitious academy, of being the only person to defeat what they called the Kobayashi Maru exercise. And what that is, it's a no-win situation. It's set up to test the leader's capabilities, but he actually defeated the scenario by going in and altering the plans the night before or whatever. So he cheated a little bit, so it's just a way, because you think about it, and as security folks, we are so challenged. We don't have a department that makes money for the hospital. So, when it comes down to that bucket of money that's out there for hospital initiatives, and you're the security director, and you want your camera system to be upgraded, and that costs X amount of hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then the radiology director has an idea of, let's acquire this new MRI machine. We can double our radiology revenue here. So when when the hospital administrator is trying to determine what value these initiatives bring to the hospital, you are already under the gun. So I am going to say this: do everything you can to increase your odds of success. And this is what I'm talking about. And when we talk about security planning and strategy, I think it begins with having just that right mindset. There's some quotes here that if you worked for me at Advent Health, you're probably sick and tired of hearing these things, but I would repeat these constantly. So success is merely a byproduct of hard work, and I would say that over and over and over. Just put in the work, whether you're going to school and taking a class or doing your job. Just give it your best effort, and like I said, if you do everything right and you do everything that's asked of you, success is almost assured in all those situations. So another one I like is good is being the enemy of great. And we would have discussions, leadership discussions. I'll go into culture in a minute, but we would talk about what does our department mean to us? What does success look like? What is world class? And but I remember this seeing this quote by I use a lot of football quotes, and Duffy Daugherty was the football coach for Michigan State back in the 1960s, even before my time. So, but he stole this quote from Voltaire, the French philosopher. And you think about it, if you're willing to satisfy for yourself with good, if you're a good security program, where is the incentive to move forward and be great? And I always used to say, if you're okay with getting a C+, is that good? Yeah, that's good. But if that's your mindset, you're never going to be great. And and that's going to eventually catch up to you and reflect poorly upon you, because there's always going to be somebody behind you that wants to be great, and then that person will eventually get attention, and you just might find yourself displaced because you're just satisfied with good. So just a little word of caution there.
Well, motivation.
Yeah, and John Wooden, basketball coach, UCLA, they have more national championships than anybody in men's hoops, and he always said failing to plan is planning to fail, and he got that from Ben Franklin, and we don't know where Ben got it from, but Ben probably stole it from someone else too. So, but it's a good way to look at things. So planning is important, and then a couple other items here. I look at the Bruno Mars thing here. If you don't believe me, just watch. I always imagine going into the C-suite and just kind of with my plan and kicking down the door and just dancing in there and having the whole entourage behind me.
That would get their attention.
There you go.
They would know you were serious about this, that you weren't.
That's right. Well, we'll get into being yourself, and that's certainly not me, even though I'd like to do that, but that's not going to be a reality of the situation. Dr. Peter Drucker, culture. Always start rigging the game with culture, and I like to say a successful security program is one with a good culture, and that's true. And Dr. Peter Drucker would say culture eats strategy for breakfast, which I disagreed with. And in fact, I remember our CEO gave a talk for, there's like 700 leaders in the room, and later on I grabbed him. I said, you know, sir, you're wrong. I said, culture may eat strategy for breakfast, and then I said, unless you make culture part of your strategy. And so kind of intoning my my inner William Shatner there, and defeating the proposition here. So that's what we did at Advent Health. We actually designed culture into our strategic plan, and we had just come together as an organization at that point in time. So systemization, we were bringing 8 different hospital sites together, 8 different ways of doing things, but we made it work with. We read these 3 books here as a leadership team, and the one I like the best here is the When Fish Fly. That's if you've ever been to Seattle, there's the Pike's Place Fish Market in at that little I don't know what you call
market. It's like a
market area.
Market.
Yeah. So the owner there, John Yokama, his business was floundering. Get it? Flounder fish? No. Okay. All right. That's why I don't do stand up for a living. Anyways, he had this gentleman here, the co-author of the book, approached him and said, you know what, I will help you turn your business around. I don't want any money. I just want a percentage of any profits that you make over and above that you're already making. So John had nothing to lose, and they made this deal. And sure enough, he started taking advice. But really, the two points I'll make from this book is, one, listen to your staff. They know the business better than anybody, and allow them and their creativity to guide the security program for you. And then and what we did is the same thing they did. We would ask ourselves at Advent Health in our security program, and I went to all the different campuses. I spoke to all the security officers, and I just asked them to do this after everything they do. Ask themselves one question: was that a world-class effort? So even as simple as writing a report on a missing pair of slippers, did I put in a world-class effort to get those slippers returned to the owner? Did we restrain that patient in a way that represented us as a world-class department? And at first it seemed a little hokey, but you know, when everybody started doing it we saw the whole department as a whole begin to change. And that's when leadership started taking notice that, hey, you know, there's something going on with these guys here, you know. So
you know, we talked about that buy-in. You know, it's got to come from everybody in your department.
It does.
You know, you'll get the result as a whole. You know, if everybody has the buy-in to the plan.
Yeah. Well, we'll kind of shift gears a little bit here and talk about, you know, what that was. So really, that was one way of seeding the situation. I call it seeding, planting of seeds. But think about your security program. You know, you have 2 different things here. You have the things that people see, which is overt security, and then you have the things that people don't see. I call it covert, not meaning top secret spy stuff, but you know, the parts of your security program that just aren't visible. So you know that when employees are asking for more security, what do? They default to the list there on the left. Yes, metal detectors, canines, I need more officers, whatever. That's what they know. That's what they think security is. Actual security is really the unseen stuff. Not that the other stuff isn't valuable, it is, but you know, having good solid training and policies and procedures and threat management and investigative support, and you know, these are the things that security does. But when I say seeding, have that elevator speech ready for those members of the C-suite or any other stakeholders that you have that can influence your plan getting put forward. So be able to talk on any of these subjects, because maybe they'll ask you about it in the elevator ride, and you got 45 seconds to impress the hell out of that CEO. So pick one thing. You don't have to, don't have to go crazy here, but just make it sound intelligent, and that'll give the, you're trying to create a lasting impression. So a little bit more structured in terms of seating. I take it one step further. I call it marketing your security program, and a little bit more trickery here involved here. So kind of follow the bouncing ball. If you've had some successes in your security program, you want to market those. You want to promote your security team, because it helps establish credibility in the organization. It project images of professionalism. So when we were Florida Hospital, we became one of the first organizations in the country to get the program of distinction from IHOS, and Lisa Terry came down and she presented the award. So we decided to do a big thing around it. We invited anyone and everyone who wanted to come see this, and somehow I was able to convince the CEO to accept the award on behalf of the organization. And then a photographer just kind of showed up, and so I kind of trying to poke my head into the picture there. And
Photo bombing.
Well, wouldn't you know it, that photo just so happened to make it into just about every single presentation I gave for the next 4 or 5 years. So there's nothing more credible than your picture next to the CEO getting an award. I just exploited that. Is that cheating? I don't know. But you know what? We had all kinds of situations coming up over the next few years. We were invited once to it. Well, all the leaders would come out to all these different sessions and off-site. So we had this thing at Disney occurring, and I remember my wife and daughters, were looking for a place to sit. And they had just gotten their food from a buffet line, and they sat down next to the. It was a different CEO who came after Mr. Oman here, and they invited us to sit at their table. I got my plate and I sat down. Oh, I'm sitting here with the CEO. Of course, all the other administrators are looking over. What is it with this security director and the CEO? He always seems to be talking to him and getting in here. So it just elevates your profile in the organization. And of course, these things accumulate after a while and getting the yes. So another thing that we did is we tried to make our lives easier for our next upline leader, so that they weren't chasing, like the flu shots. We were always the first department to get our flu shots done. Or be for most of them anyways. And our vehicles were always immaculate. Our officers were always sharp. And so you're presenting an image, you're projecting a competence. And when you do that, it gets a lot easier to say yes when you're asking for a $45,000 security vehicle. So these are the things that get you there. So you're having a department meeting, you got everybody there, pull them all out and get a picture. It's better if everybody's wearing the same thing, but that one worked. I talked about strategy, rigging the game, and you want to also, like I kind of alluded to it before, you want to leverage the influence of others, and not that you're a motorcycle gang selling guns and drugs and in the pornography business like the Sons of Anarchy. But a good way to look at leveraging the influence of others is, I don't know if you ever watched the show, but Jax, the young guy on the left, was the vice president of the motorcycle gang, and his stepdad there. Clay represented the old guard. He wanted to continue selling guns, which is a pretty high risk proposition. You know, we know we're security police folks, so we know that there's a certain amount of risk. Yeah, there's a lot of reward, but there's a lot of risk to that. So Jax wanted to diversify a little bit, go into less riskier types of things, semi-legal, depending on what state you're in, I guess. So what they would do is they would go to all the other guys, the other gang members who would be sitting around the table, and when they made decisions together, just like a hospital leadership team does. So they would try to use the influence of others. So if somebody had a little bit more influence in the motorcycle gang than other members, they would try to reach those people and get them to agree to their positions. So in our world, it's probably not a hard sell to get your ED director to buy into any of your security ideas. Certainly meet with your risk management folks and human resource director, anybody with a C in their title if they're interested in security. Because what you really want to do is you want to kind of influence use that influence to get to the yes people, to get them to say yes. So sticking with these guys for a minute, situational influences too. So think about the pandemic as a situational influence. Here we lock down our perimeter. We might want to institute some visitor screening, visitor management systems, body cameras. You want to take note that, hey, our violence is increasing as a result of this particular situation. I'm not saying exploit it. I'm saying utilize the fallout, the things that are occurring as a result of the situation to say I need these items to help our security program and to keep our hospitals safe. Another thing that a lot of security directors miss is partnering with your IT team. I would go, there's a thing out there, believe it or not, there's a thing out there called Common Security Framework, CSF. If you don't know what that is, look it up. There are various different types of IT security requirements out there to gain licenses and certifications and things like that. One of them is high trust, and high trust has a lot of different requirements in order for the IT team to get that certification. And it's really beneficial to the organization. It ties right into their business plan. So what I'm talking about is cameras on comms closets and things like that, where you store critical infrastructure, two-factor authentication to get into these areas. I'm sure some of this stuff is already on your list of wants for physical security, but there's things that are happening in other areas of the organization that require security compliance that may be physical security measures. So you're using these types of situations to get things added to your plan. So, you know, we need to, so once you've kind of created this strategy, and you want to also be able to sell your plan too. So the one thing I would say is trust your instincts. There's a lot to be said for human nature here. So, and again, you know, use the force. You know, there is something out there about human beings and going with your first impressions. This book here, Blink, I had to read that. It was a required reading for me in an organization I was with many years ago. But there was some pretty interesting stuff in there that you are seeing things unconsciously and responding to them. So if you've ever watched a football game and you're watching a team go down the field and you say, you know, I'll bet he's going to throw an interception. And then it happens. I remember I was watching a baseball game one time, and it was the weirdest thing. I said, this guy's going to hit a home run, you watch. And then, and he did. And then the next guy up at bat, I said, you know what? This guy's going to hit a home run too. And he did. And this book kind of explained that, you know, throughout my lifetime, I've been watching baseball or football or whatever. But there was something I was seeing unconsciously, you know, with the pitcher that showed me that something was off and something was going to happen as a result. And it's pretty neat. And Gift of Fear, a lot of people have read this. It's an older book, but it's still great. I bought a copy for all my daughters to read, and it's as human beings, we are the only species on this planet that senses fear, but will talk ourselves out of it and out of reacting to it, rather. So know that sense, and you know, if you feel something's right, go with it. If something doesn't feel right, then act that way. So, and the same thing with your strategic planning. So the other thing is know your organization's decision process. So there is a way. Some organizations have some very, if you want to introduce a project, it has to go through several committees and hurdles and things like that. So now you got to influence all those different people as well. So you've got to get in there and before those meetings and sell those folks who are going to turn around and sell the program for you. So it's good to know the rules of the game here before you start going and introducing stuff. And then timing, I think, is really important too. Some organizations have, well, nearly all of them do, rather, have a budget cycle. And you got to know, all right, well, they're going to be approving capital beginning in August. Well, then you got to have your plan ready 6 months before then. And then you got to start selling that plan for the next 6 months before you get to that budget cycle. And you got to get that in administrative support. And so sometimes I had a boss who used to like to say, you know, security stock is trading pretty high up in the C-suite right now. You guys did a great job with that. Or, you know, okay, maybe that's the time to ask for that vehicle.
That's right. You got to strike while the iron is hot.
or the other way. Oh, security stock is trading low. Well, back off on that. Maybe not a good time to ask for that. So, and internal, external events. You know, our strategic plan was gaining ground in 2014, 2015 after I'd written it. And then we had the Pulse nightclub incident occur. And then, of course, you know, that was an external event that impacted the greater Orlando area and really caused a community sense of fear, really. And that's where our staff live and work. And it really impacted our organization in a lot of different ways. So, you know, there's always this movie here, Godfather 3 is where this comes from. You know, think about finance as a gun, and you know, you got to know when to pull the trigger, and that's you know, politics, and I don't like to use that. But also, kind of going along with Blink and the Gavin de Becker book, their Gift of Fear. You know yourself. You know your strengths, your limitations, your leadership style. Be authentic. Don't try to be somebody else. You know, I think we've all done this to a certain degree. We've tried to emulate other people, and just go into your presentation and just be yourself. Unless you're a real jerk, then you don't want to do that. But one thing, if you ever have an opportunity, and is what they call, this is an MMPI. It's a leadership profile, and a lot of organizations will do this. Sometimes I've actually had a couple positions where I've applied for, and they make you take that test just to see where you fit into the organization's culture, or do you have the right personality for being in that either in the organization or as a leader. So this is Myers-Briggs. Captain Kirk, he's an ENTJ. So some of his characteristics, and you could, if you've done this before, kind of the next thing to do is you want to Google your personality type and see all the different famous people who have that share, and see who they are and maybe what their leadership style was. And I did this. There's a lot of different people, Winston Churchill and other people that are ENTJs, a lot of presidents, but they also give fictitious characters too. And I thought it was pretty neat that Captain Kirk here. So we'll stay on the William Shatner theme here for this here. So you think about Kirk, he kind of had a little confidence and swagger, and I like to use the term strident, resilient, can think outside the box. He's fearless. These are some of the characteristics of his profile. And then the ENTJs are, if you look them up in this, where are they here? ENTJ is, they're at the top. Of course, they're at the top. They're the commander, they're bold, they're imaginative, strong-willed, and all that. But the other thing that the Myers-Briggs will tell you is also be careful of how others perceive you. And one of the things about being an ENTJ is sometimes that confidence, that swagger, that resilience can be seen as arrogance and standoffishness. And so you want to temper yourself and maybe put a control on some of those the ways you do things, and understand that. So
it's got to balance out, all the ups and downs of your style, and know who you're talking to too.
Yeah. And then the other thing I would say before we close is that sell your plan. And when I was a little new lawyer, when I was fresh out of law school, and they really first day they give you, here's your briefcase, here's your brief, you got to go in there and attend this hearing. I'm like, what? So all right. But that's how you learn. They throw you out of the nest early, and it's either sink or swim. But if you're a new lawyer, and a lot of times what I've found, I was up against, people who have been lawyers for like 20, 30 years, and geez, you get knocked around pretty good in those first couple of years with folks who are just, basically toying with you. But my solution for that was I couldn't control that. I know these people were far more experienced attorneys, and they knew more tricks of the trade. They'd forgotten more than I'll ever learn. But the one thing that I did have control over was who would be the most prepared lawyer in the courtroom that day. And then I was looking at, kind of some movies here that we all know, A Few Good Men. We know how that worked out for Tom Cruise. And Matt Damon here in The Rainmaker, perfect example, and then Joe Pesci here is in that movie there where he's defending his, I think his cousin there, my cousin Vinny. So, but you don't have to be a pro that day, but you just have to be good that one time, kind of like that Toby Keith song. So just just be prepared when you're going in there, and just remember this too: when you're speaking to the C-suite, you are the security expert. They are not. They don't know anything about security, and it's up to you to be the person to educate them. So, and I'll just leave you with that. And let's start taking some questions.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. That was great. And if anybody has any questions, they can feel free to to just type them into the chat.
Yeah, and this is my contact information too. If
Right.
you have any questions or need anything, I'll just leave this up for about another minute. And then, of course, for Threshold, if you want
Right.
to reach out to.
If you need any information on visitor management, we can help you, but Bill can help you with any of the, and we will send all this presentation out to everybody who attended today. So we'll give you the actual presentation and a recording of the presentation as well, if you need to share it with any of your team members. But Bill's available if you have any questions or want to follow up with him at a later date as well. So.
All right. Oh,
That's great.
Stop sharing. Is the screen still up, or are we?
No, your screen is gone, so I think we're good. So,
we're live. All right.
We're live. So thank you, Bill. I think that was great. I hope everybody got what they needed from this presentation. And like we said, reach out to us or reach out to me or to Bill, and we can get you in touch. And so we've got great presentation, nice comments coming in. I don't see any specific questions, but I think people have enjoyed what you shared today, Bill. So thank you for that. And like I said, Bill's available if you need to ask him any questions down the road. We will be sending you an email with the contact information and the printout of the presentation. So thank you all for joining us. I hope everybody has a great day and happy early Memorial Day weekend, beginning of summer.
All right, go out there, get it done. Now just say go out there and get it done.
Well, I think a lot of good tips here on preparing and getting your strategy together and then getting a plan and then being able to execute it all is key.
Yeah. Security directors in hospitals have one of the toughest jobs right now, I think. And I remember because I was a security director less than 2 years ago, before I started doing consulting full time. But I think some of the challenges for us are just the amount of workplace violence out there is just really impacting the workforce, and I think that unfortunately nearly everything that a hospital security director does today is in some way tied to workplace violence, either training it, asking for resources for it, developing processes and procedures to address it, actually addressing it, or dealing with the fallout of an incident is also a lot of what we do. And some of the things that we've kind of got pushed to the side, and I was having a discussion with a couple of other people who've been in the business a long time, and that is some of the things that we just don't do anymore that I think we should be doing are loss prevention. Think about this. We have maybe about 10% of all of the hospital's assets they either get lost, stolen, or they get damaged in some way. And if you think about that 10% figure, go ask your vice president of the supply chain how much the hospital spends annually on new equipment and materials and supplies. Because I did, and I found out it was about $430 million a year. And then you divide by 10.
That's a reasonable big chunk of change.
Well, doesn't it make sense to invest a little bit into a loss prevention program that could either stop or mitigate $43 million of loss?
And you can measure that. You can you can get the money and it can be measured to see the success of that. So it all will pay off. They'll see a return on that investment so quickly.
And so much of our job that we used to do in the 1980s and 1990s, and just before workplace violence became a thing, was that. And then the first thing that kind of before workplace violence, the big thing was terrorism, anti-terrorism. You have an anti-terrorism plan. Like somebody was going to bomb some hospital in Sandusky, Ohio, or something like that. It's I'm not saying don't plan. I'm just saying that, hey, you know, the clear and present danger was the workplace violence, and then the Sentinel alert came out in 2010 on workplace violence, and that really just started the whole chain reaction of where we find ourselves today. But the workplace violence rates are continuing to rise. I have not seen any hospital that I have been in the last few years and shared discussions with many security directors all over the country. Nobody has said, hey, our workplace violence rate is going down. It's not. So we have to address it. And that's why I say that planning is really, really important, and having a plan that is cohesive and makes a lot of sense and not just proportionate to the organization's budget or something that just doesn't fit within the culture. It makes a lot of sense. So.
Right. Well, thank you, Bill. This was excellent. I hope everybody enjoyed it. And like you said, we'll follow up with an email, so if you could reach out to Bill or I if you have any more questions.
Yeah.
So thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care.
Have a good day. Yep.